Today we geek out about ZWar1 Exodus. Hey guys, what's going on? This is Lee with Geek City USA here, and today we're going to talk about a game called ZWar1 Exodus. Now this is published by Dice Sports, and it's a game for 1 to 5 players, and it can be cooperative or competitive, and typically you are playing the humans trying to survive a zombie apocalypse, or you may be playing the director role, which has you controlling those zombies that are eliminating your friends. So I'm going to take you over here, I'll give you a brief rundown on how the game is played and what it looks like, and then we'll come back up top and I will give you our thoughts on the game. Alright, so what you are looking at right here is a prototype copy of Exodus, a ZWar1 game. Now, I hope you could tell by this camera shot, this game is huge. The footprint is very large. Right here, the main game board that I have set up right now is the very first scenario in the game, and it's made up of 4 tiles. Now, there are 6 tiles in all that came with the prototype, and I'll show you kind of what they are. These are the 2 that aren't being used for this mission, but you'll see here that there's, number 1, excellent art on each side of these, but these are double-sided for each of the different scenarios. So you may, on one scenario you'll use one set, and on another you'll use some different ones. Fronts and backs will get swapped around. But you see here, these are a good size. I mean, my hand is, pretty big. And I would say that the game board as put out is on par, maybe just a little bit smaller than a Ticket to Ride board is long, and maybe a little wider than a Ticket to Ride style board is wide. So it's a little more square than your average game board, and I would definitely say it's bigger. Now let me give you guys a quick look at this. This right here is the rule book for the prototype, and you see there is a lot of content to this. And I have to say that these rules are very in-depth. It seems at first glance that there is a lot to this game. There's a lot of different rule nuances and such, but first of all, it's very easy to figure out as the game goes. It's a pretty cut and dry. This, the human turn, the zombie turn, you do a couple of things each turn, but the way the rules are laid out and the information in the rules, as well as hints and tips with some rules that you may forget. It's definitely a well laid out rule book, and there's a good amount of information to it. So while I think that once you get the game going, you don't have a need to refer back to the rules very often, but if you do, there's a good amount of detail that typically has cleared up any kind of questions that we have had when we've played. So definitely kudos on the rule book, really impressed. And not only that, man, I love the art on this game. I know this is the box art as well, but that just looks really good. All right, now I also want to show you this here. This is the comic book campaign. Now, what this is in the prototype, this is a 4-mission campaign. In the final version of the game, it's, I believe, going to be a 7-mission campaign. And if you look here, this is a comic book story that sets the stage for what mission you're about to play, or for what game you're about to play. It's a little bit of story, a little prep work, and then you have here, this is your layout, the map of the board, how you're going to set it up, where your zombies are going to go, where your special items that you interact with are going. And then there's also here the mission where it's going to explain what's going to happen in this mission. And then you have your turn spawns, which based on your die roll tells you what's going to spawn from which zombie points, as well as when you search a room or go into a room, what's going to be in there. And then it says if you're going to play quick play or director mode, how you're going to set those up. Now let's talk about that. So the game itself is set up in a mission format. So once you finish mission 1, you're going to go ahead and continue on, go into mission 2 and mission 3 and so on. But there are other ways that you could play. You can play a quick play mode, which you're just going to set up the board just like you're playing this mission, but it's going to be a one play, one and done. And then there's also a director mode. Now what that is, it's a variant on the gameplay where somebody takes on the role of the director and they have a stack of director cards, and those cards are going to let them stack the odds against the favor of the survivors, is how it's put in the rule book. And you'll see here these director cards, these are them, they're going to tell you different things that you could do. Spawn a zombie, force the heroes to re-roll, ambush them, and it's a nice little variant on the gameplay. So that way, if you want to play with more than a couple of players, 2 survivors in this case for the prototype, it was 2 survivors, you can add an additional player that's one against the rest. So it was a nice little touch, a nice addition to the game. And let me also show you the 3D sculpts of these zombies. Now, these miniatures, of course, are 3D printed for the prototype, so the final release will be a little higher quality, but the sculpts were really nice, if you could see those okay. These are the 2 base zombies. And then here we have the sirens, which are pretty ugly and hideous considering sirens lore. So I thought that was pretty interesting. A lot of gross happening here. And then you have the seekers, and these are basically going wherever the sirens ask them to go. Let's see if I can get that in there and study that pretty good. Pretty creepy, a little bit of, I'm assuming that's like some kind of entrails or maybe just be a tail. Initially I thought this would be a crawler, but man, these things cruise when you play the game. These are creepy. And then finally you have reavers. And reavers, when they're moving around the water, you're just gonna see this. They're little shark guys, right? No big deal, little shark action, little shark zombie. Well, then they come out of the water and you see these creepy monstrosities. And they are, again, super cool, really powerful, bizarro, creepy zombies. So good attention to detail on these as well. Now, as you play the game, each zombie is going to have a different type of power and a different action. And if you look here, you have these zombie cards, and there's going to be one for each zombie type. Now, in the final version of the game, there's some additional zombies, but this will give you an idea here. And you'll see here, like for example, the reavers have certain roles for their grab test and their bite test, as well as what their walk speed is, how far they can smell, their charge, their kill points. And you have this for each type of zombie, and you can see here that they're all a little bit different. So it definitely feels like you're facing different zombies, and it adds quite a bit of an element of stress to the game. This game is very stressful in nature, and in a good way. Now I'll show you the 2 survivor miniatures. So we have right here is the male survivor. I don't mean he survived the US mail, I mean it is a guy. Nice little shotgun on his back. And then there is also the female survivor here. Prepped and armed, and she is quite the powerhouse. Whereas the male starts the game with a pistol and a shotgun, she has a pistol and a 50 cal, so she's definitely a good one to have on your side. And we will put them back in their starting spot here. And then finally there's a non-player character miniature that came with the prototype of the game of a little girl. I'll show that to you guys just so you get an idea. And she also comes with a card that indicates her powers and moves and what she can do. There's also a few additional components. There's a little boat that you'll use when you have a water map that you'll be able to dispatch from a ship and move around the board. And then there's also, this is some stairs that I did not put out here when I was setting this up that I should have, which I think goes right here, that lets you get from the dock to the ship. It's a very key important part of the game, I guess. Now in addition, each player is going to have a player board. This, for example, is his board, and it shows you your starting equipment. So he comes with a shotgun, a pistol, as well as a med kit. And this is where you're going to put your starting weapons and stuff. This is what you find when you're searching. And you'll see here, this is for perks as you level them up. This is where they can level up. And obviously if it's red, he's not going to be able to level up there. And then it gives you a nice breakdown as far as what the actions are and how many action points they take. So you're going to start the game with 4 action points. So what you do, like moving 1 square is 1 action point, or you can run 3 squares for 2 action points. So let me show you on the tracker boards here. Now this is going to be a living board for you because as you shoot your weapons, you're going to move the dial to drop the ammo down. If you ever reload, you can move it on up. And then this is also going to show you the flow of the game as well. So you have like the hero move first, then the infected move, the infected are going to spawn, and then the end phase. And then this shows you with your power perks, so that was the additional icons that I showed you that were right here. So that's going to show you on this, you typically, some of them you can only use a limited amount of times. So as you're using these perks, you can drop down how many times you've used them. Now, if you are bitten, and you will be bitten, you slowly, turn by turn or activation by activation with, if you have a zombie on top of you, you're going to whittle this down. Now, as your character slowly turns into a zombie, you're going to notice here that your APs change. So you're going to start the game with 4 action points, but by the time you hit the 3rd stage of infection, you're dropping to 3 action points, and then all the way down to 2 action points. So it definitely will get to be more of a struggle, and you have to really manage and mitigate if you get bit and infected, how soon you heal yourself. Do you let yourself run down a little bit and then juice yourself back up as you go? Because again, a lot of these, if you look at how many action points they take, you could be in a little bit of trouble. Now, you're always able to do an action if something says 2 action points, like let's say you wanted to activate one of these objective markers here, and you can't see what I'm pointing at, but there's an objective marker on the board here. If you wanted to activate it and it took your entire turn to activate it, or 4 action points, you could still do that with 2 action points. So you're not completely dead in the water, but the game will definitely get more difficult as you lose your action points. Right now, I'm not going to be able to go through all the rules of the game, but I want to give a brief example of what a turn might start like. So let's say that this guy's going to go first. We can go 1, 2. That takes us 2 actions. And then we will open this door for a 3rd action. Now what we do immediately is we look on our room spawn list for this mission, and we see based on what we are about to roll is what happens. So let's roll. We'll roll this red die, and I'll roll it right here. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. All right, so I rolled a 5. So if we look here on the room spawn list down to 5, we see 1 zombie and the number 1 in parentheses. Now what that means is there is 1 zombie that will be 1 space from the entrance. So in that case, we'll take a regular zombie and we would place it right there at the entrance. Now, if it said there was 1 zombie 2 spaces from the entrance, he would be here. 1, 2. So, and if there were multiple zombies, you place them accordingly. So in this case, we rolled that. So this is what he immediately has to deal with. Now we already used 3 of our actions. So if you look on our hero action board, we're not going to be able to do this aimed fire. And what the aimed fire is it gives you better odds to roll. And I'll show you on a card here. So let's say our hero has the shotgun, and we will look here and we'll see there's 2 sets of numbers. This is with just a regular quick fire, and these are our odds for an aimed fire. So you'll see that the aimed fire, a 1 or a 2 is actually going to knock the zombie down, whereas a 1 or a 2 from a quick fire is going to miss. But we don't have enough action points, so we're not able to aim. We just have to shoot and hope we kill this guy. And so let's look at this card here. We're going to want to roll a 5 to an 8 to kill this zombie. So let's roll and see. And I rolled an 8. So this zombie would be dead, and that player is out of actions. And we would continue on to the other player. Now, one thing to note too, once you go into a room or activate a room, which you can also do just by knocking on the door, that lets you see what zombies are in there. But you add one of these tokens in here, and it's a search icon with a question mark. And that indicates that the room's been activated, but it has not been searched yet. Had it been searched, you would just replace that with one of these chits here. And this is a completed search token, and this would just go right on top. You actually get rid of the old token and just replace it with the new. And that shows you that you've already searched that room. Now these crates, so when you search, it takes you a full 4 action points. So you would need to spend, he would need to already be in that room for his next turn if he decided to search. And that would let him draw something from the search deck. And in the search deck, you're going to see things. There are pieces and parts, and I'm a little zoomed in here. Let me see if this will focus. So there's pieces and parts. You see there's a symbol, and they tell you what you need to collect to make different items. Like if you want to make a nail bomb, you need to select this number of cards, or this combination of cards, in order to create that. So there's a whole slew of different cards here of what you might find. You can make med kits, you can make Molotov cocktails, get ammo, and so on. Now the beautiful thing about these crates here is all you have to do is you just have to walk into one of those, and then you would remove that from the board, and you could draw yourself a card from the search deck. So they're a much easier and much safer way to search. Let me move him back to where he was. Now on the infected turn, you will move all zombies according to their list here. So where it says a walk, they'll walk 2, but if they're within smell range or charging range, they're going to hoof it over there. Basically what that means is, do they have a line of sight? If they do, they could charge. And if they did, like in this case, he could move 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and he could immediately start a combat with this survivor. Once you move all of your infected, you will roll for an infected spawn. So you see here like this letter A, these are throughout the board, A through D, and you will roll on this chart here that says turn spawn. And it's different by mission. So let's roll really quick. We rolled a 6, and if we look here, that is 1 zombie spawns in zombie spawn spot D, which is on a different part of the board, and he would immediately get to move on to the board. Now you'll usually continue on and on until you reach your objective. In this case, let's say they just needed to get in this room and close all the doors. The board would not look like this. There would typically be zombies everywhere. Then you would end the mission, and you can continue with the next mission and go from there. Now there's a really cool feature to the game that are these little save tickets here. Now what these do is when you finish a mission, you can fill out basically what weapons you have, what kind of ammunition you have, equipment and stuff like that, and that allows you to set up and continue for maybe another day or down the road. These can also be used as save tickets. So you think of them as save slots. 3 save slots with which to save your progress during the day. So let's say, like a video game, you are not sure of what's going to happen right here. So you want to save your game, so you'll go ahead and mark your information and then continue with your play. Well, if you ever want to reload, you can reload from that save spot, which is a really, really cool feature to have. Now also when you finish a mission, before you start the next mission, when you're setting it up, you might see this icon here that says level up at the top. And that'll say, like in this case, in a campaign game, both heroes may choose a perk card before starting the mission. And that would basically give them something to obviously level up and power up their characters. So it gives the feel of a video game and some player growth as the game progresses. And just to give you an idea of what an end game scenario might look like, and this right here might be what things look like at the very end of the mission. So it's definitely not going to be sparse. There's going to be a lot of zombies and it's going to be a struggle. All right guys, well I'm going to take you back up top and I'll give you our thoughts on the game. All right guys, that was Z-War 1 Exodus. So let me start by saying that was a prototype copy of the game, believe it or not. And that game looked excellent. The prototype, the components were great. The miniatures come the final release aren't going to be 3D printed, obviously, as well as the dials on the player board are going to be thicker. And there might be a few other changes. Definitely check out the Kickstarter for what the final game is going to look like. Now, I absolutely loved the art on this game. It was very much like a graphic novel, the comic book feel to it, but it was very well done. The art looked excellent on this game. The gameplay here is very easy to pick up. This uses an action point system, so you have 4 action points usually. Sometimes that'll come down if you are infected or bitten by a zombie, but you have a set number of action points that lets you select and choose what you're going to do on your turn. And then after you take your turn, your buddies take their turn, and then the zombies go. And it's a very easy mechanic to pick up, or a very easy gameplay system to pick up if you haven't played that kind of system before. And there's also a really nice reference on each of the player boards that indicate what you can do and how many points. And that definitely helps to move the game along, especially when you first start to play, because obviously when you're picking up a new game system and you look at it, you have a lot of options, and getting those options under control as far as what each of them are, what you can do on a turn, is very helpful to have them right there in front of you. And they're right there, concise, and you're looking at it the whole game, so it starts to become second nature as the game goes on. Now, I love the way that there were different ways to play this game. You could play just a quick standalone game where you just pick a mission and play it, Or you can play a campaign mode where you're going from mission to mission to mission, carrying on your the equipment that you've gathered and your injuries and everything from game to game. Or you can play the director mode, which is where one of your friends or soon-to-be enemies is playing the zombie team, and they're controlling what they do and are basically putting a ton of roadblocks in your way as you play. There's also a game mode for the Kickstarter edition called Renegade, in which the players break into teams. One player takes on the role of the director, and the humans are trying to get loot cards while the director's trying to stop them. If you die in the process, you come back as a newly spawned newborn zombie. So really cool idea and thought to that realm of play. Now there's a lot of replayability to this game because if you're playing a quick mode or just a quick setup, obviously as the game plays, it's going to morph differently each play. In addition to that, I played a couple of run-throughs of the campaign, and each time those missions played out so drastically different from each other. Some of them I had a good way to cruise to my different objectives. Other times it was a merciless just bloodbath where I was limping from step to step. And each time it felt fresh and new, and it was a really, really good gaming experience. Now this game is obviously going to be for the fan of the survival horror, miniatures game, zombie themed game, but this game I think will also appeal to any kind of dungeon crawl-esque gamer. If you maybe don't play a lot of zombie themed games, this could be a good entry into it because there's that campaign mode feel to it. So you're leveling up your characters are continuing from scenario to scenario, and it really is a satisfying, almost RPG style feel to the game. All right, so let's talk final thoughts here because there's a lot of different zombie games out there already. Let me tell you that ZWar1 Exodus really does stand out from the rest. And the reason I say that is, first of all, the campaign mode is fantastic. The game mechanics, the game just plays smoothly. And the key piece to me is, I've played a lot of zombie games. Let me start by saying that. I like the genre. It's kind of been done to death in a lot of aspects, but ZWar1 stands out so much because as I'm playing the game, I am feeling this agony and this stress as I'm trying to decide what to do. I don't think I've ever struggled or suffered along with my hero characters as I have in this game, and I mean that in a good way. Seeing an objective that's just out of your reach and not knowing how you're going to get there, watching your partner over in the corner failing miserably and dying, and it's such an immersive theme. Now you throw in the save system, you throw in the upgrade system, it gives it a little bit of a living, breathing video game feel, and I'm sold on this game. So simply put, I really enjoyed this game. I would highly recommend you check it out if you're a fan of the zombie genre, if you're a fan of survival horror, or if you like miniature-based dungeon crawls, definitely give this game a look. I would recommend you check this out. All right, guys, that's it. I'm Lee with Geek City USA. Thanks for hanging out with us. Be sure to subscribe if you don't already. You can comment down below to interact with us. And also check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're on all these socials. We'd love to interact with you guys and get to know you more and just chit chat. So again, thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next time.